Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Not Another Flippin podcast. My name's Aaron West and I'll be your host. You can follow me on Instagram at AaronSells87. Today's guest is YouTube sensation, BBC hit list music show winner, and is seen by many as a trailblazer when it comes to reselling content on YouTube. And what I would say to this guest, and we'll see if he knows what I mean in a second, is sometimes people will love to hate you, but I think they should show a little respect. Welcome to the show, Nick Hills.
Thank you. Yes, I get the Erasure reference. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on.
Well, I wanted you to be, in fact, Nick, before we go any further, shall we address the elephant in the room?
Let's be open and honest. This is not the first time we've spoken.
It's certainly not. It should be the first time that we've spoken, and it's the first time people are going to hear this. But this podcast is actually the first time we've spoken, but this is the first time I've recorded the conversation.
Yeah, we've been here before and we didn't press record. Well, I'll say we. You didn't press record. So
I didn't press record.
It was a test run last time. That's what it was.
Yeah, we'll put it down to an amateur mistake by an amateur podcaster. And one thing that I will say is I'm fairly certain that that will never happen again with any future guest.
I should hope so. After doing it once.
I was honestly, because we're recording obviously the video as well for YouTube, I was honestly going to put like a note on my head just saying press record and just check. And I have just checked and we are actually recording. So I think we're good to go this time.
It says recording in the corner of my screen. So I think we're good this time.
Excellent. It says it in mine as well. So good. So anyway, Nick, like I say, this should be the first time we've had this conversation, but I just want to explain that I wanted to bring you on as the first guest for this podcast, purely because I want this podcast to be a place where people can come on and they can tell their stories of how they got into reselling, what they do with reselling, what area of reselling they're in. Are they full-time? Are they part-time? Because I think we all came into reselling through a different road, and we all some of us maybe stumbled upon it. Some of us maybe have always wanted to do it or always done it, even in the schoolyard selling like also Lucasade from multi-packs and things like that, and it was destined to do it. And I think with the first episode, what I wanted to do is I wanted to tell my story. I mean, I've been on Instagram for a while and I follow quite a lot of people on Instagram, but I've never kind of really put out there how I came into reselling. And unbeknownstly to you, you played a massive part in me actually becoming a reseller. And I feel like to tell that story and to tell it as authentic as I can, it's lovely to be able to tell it to you at the same time. So again, thanks for coming on. And are you all right with me telling you my story, I guess?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Go for it.
Well, I would imagine that you've inspired so many people through YouTube, and I don't know how you came about onto YouTube. But I think one of the things that I see as a hallmark of you, weirdly, before I get into me, is when I go to the car boot sale now and I see people pulling the trolleys, I always think that has come, somebody has seen Nick Hills do that, replicated it, and somebody's seen them do that and replicated it, and now there's just hundreds of these trolleys being pulled around the car. I've got a trolley, by the way.
Have you? I don't know if I can claim to be the first to do that. When we got our first trolley, there certainly weren't many other people that I'd ever seen doing it, and we talked about it on the channel. Maybe I did inspire people to get a trolley. I don't know. Perhaps that's my legacy.
I think maybe if you wasn't the first to do it, you was almost certainly the first to put it on YouTube, and then obviously people have seen that and followed on. Like I say, I've got a trolley that I use sparingly now. I don't use it as much as I used to. I think I'm scared that it's about to break. I've had it that long and I've put that much heavy stuff in.
I broke mine, but that was going to a festival. It had all the cider and beer in it. That's why we broke it.
Oh, worst time to break it.
Yeah.
Do you find as well, I know I'm going up on a tangent here, but this is going to happen a lot in this podcast. Do you find people rooting in your trolley when you're at a car boot sale?
100%. If you don't keep your eye on it, people somehow think it's part of the stall.
Crazy, isn't it?
And fish stuff out. And a lot of kids go through my trolley just thinking,
like, whoa.
Yeah,
that's mine.
I've
actually used that.
Some people get covers for them. I think George got a cover for his.
Yeah.
I think it was, which can't remember. So that's probably a good tip. I still don't have a cover for mine, but we have taken a blanket to cover stuff over. Particularly if you picked up some valuable stuff, I think it's worth doing.
Yeah, and electricals on that point. So, well, I've used mine for multi-purpose as well. So, like, I've got 2 daughters, and one of them's now 4. One of them's about to turn 2. And the problem that I have is the 4-year-old's obviously walking and running everywhere, and the 2-year-old, sometimes she gets a bit tired, so we take the pram. But what I've started to do is just plonk them both in the trolley, just pull them to the park in the trolley, and they love it because they're having a little ride, and I love it because instead of it taking 5.5 years to get to the park, it takes about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm off on one. So I'll take you back to the start and how I started reselling, and then I'll talk a little bit about how the episode's going to be called "The Reseller That Changed My Life," and I don't think that that's an overreaction in any way. There's a lot of like clickbait titles and things like that, and this most certainly isn't a clickbait title. So I can remember that I was not living the best life. I was making bad decision after bad decision after bad decision. And one day when I was hungover from beers, drugs, I can remember it clear. I was lying on my sofa. I was watching YouTube. I don't know what I'd started watching, but I hadn't moved for that long that it had come onto one of your videos. And honestly, I'd never typed reselling, and I didn't even know what reselling was. So I must have just lay there for hours upon hours just watching YouTube. I probably would have started with something like, I don't know, some police program or something. Anyway, I ended up watching your video, and it kind of like hit me straight away. Like, I was watching you go around buying stuff, and you was buying stuff, and you'd go back to your house, your previous house, I must say, because this is probably 2019 when I started watching your content.
Okay.
And you would kind of like appraise what you'd bought and like what you was going to sell it for. And I just clicked on your channel, and I watched your channel from like beginning to the point you was at the time. And I'd not long met my partner, and I was saying to her, she was telling me already how much I needed to change my life. We had no children at this point, but she was like telling me like, you're a waster, you need to sort this out. And I really wanted to be with her, so I was like, I know. And when I stumbled across your video, I just looked at her and said, that's what I want to do. That is what I want to do. And we went to the local car boot sale the following weekend, and I can remember the first thing I bought was a child's Manchester United t-shirt for £1. And it sold for £15. And anyone will know, the moment you get that ka-ching on your phone, it's even now, you get that ka-ching, and it's like, oh, and you get that little spring. And I can be in a really bad mood, and I'll get that ka-ching, and instantly my day's brightened up. And it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I think we're all still addicted to that ka-ching. It never gets old.
No,
I've been doing it 20 years, and it's still not old. That's what we want. That ka-ching. Well, the ka-ching and finding stuff, they're equally important and fun.
Yeah, and the opposite end of the scale is the noise you get when you know it's somebody asking a question about an item or something that's has been delivered, and then you get that message.
Yeah,
and the worst ones, the worst offenders for those are those that message you on a really expensive item after you've sent it, but the message is simply thanking you that it's arrived. So you're having these, your heart's having palpitations because you think, oh, it's going to be a £300 return, and all of a sudden it's just to let you know it's arrived in great condition, and you think, just leave me the feedback. That'd be great, thank you.
Opening eBay messages, you dread it, and then it's lovely when someone says that item arrived early and it's fantastic, and it makes your day. But yeah, opening an eBay message is always, it feels like a lottery, doesn't it? It's like, is it going to be good or bad?
What we're going to get here. So yeah, but what I'll do now is, before I stumbled upon your videos, I just kind of like want to do like a little comparison as to where like I'm at now. Honestly, I know it sounds really stupid, this, but I don't, because I've been gripped by reselling. If I feel like if I wouldn't have come across that video, my life probably would have just carried on going down the stupid path that it was going down. So I'm 36 now. I must have been probably 31 when I started watching your videos, maybe the back end of 30. And honestly, all through my 20s, I had just made bad decision. Honestly, if anyone wanted advice on how to make the worst possible decisions at the worst possible times, I was your man. I could tell anybody how to completely screw their life up. And that's what I was doing. I was taking drugs, namely cocaine, all the time. It was literally, it was available to me in my block of apartments where I was living. The person who used to get it off lived in there. So it was literally available to me at any point of the day, any day of the week. I was in the most horrendous jobs, working for agencies. Like, it was a life where at the weekend I used to think that I was living this great life, and oh, look at me, I've got all these mates and we're having all these parties. And the reality was, I hated it. I hated my life, and I was just not, there was nothing to replace it. And I think sometimes what I used to say to myself is, well, I'm in this job that I hate. I struggle. I never go to like Sainsbury's or Morrison's or anything and just buy some food. I'm just living day to day. I hated it. And sometimes I used to just think to myself, the one thing I can control is my weekends and what I get up to. So I'm just going to absolutely get off my head and enjoy myself. And I used to end up in states where I'd have literally no money. I couldn't get to work all week. I'd end up taking my television to the local pawn shop, getting money from, and I just look back now and I think, I used to walk the street holding a television to the pawn shop to get some money so I could get to work and back. And it's just an utter, like, it's embarrassing. Like, I look back and I think, what an embarrassment. If I saw someone doing that now, I mean, I try and not judge people like that as much, because I know I've been there myself, but sometimes I just feel like getting people and just like shaking them and saying, like, just do more with your life. Like, I was doing nothing with my life, and it's thanks to coming across your videos that I now do have a purpose.
I think it's surprisingly common that people live paycheck to paycheck, living for the weekend, spend all your money, start again. It's not uncommon. And you know, at least you had the wherewithal to think, I need to change something here. And I'm just privileged to be that little bit of inspiration that you stumbled across, right? That was my role in this, but you did everything else. You made the decision. You knew you wanted to change.
Yeah.
And I just happened to be there. I was there at the right time with the right video. That's
it. Yeah, that's it. But also, like, it wasn't just that. It was more like that you always upload like further along, and you'll go back to stuff that you've bought and show, and like you evidenced basically what you were saying in these videos. So like I say, I must have spent like 10 hours just going through your channel, like 10 hours a day for 5, 6, 7 days straight, and I was just taking in all this information. But like, going back to, like I was saying about the ka-ching, the moment I got that first ka-ching on my phone, my life changed. That very moment, like, it ka-chinged. I'd never sold anything on eBay before in my life. Yeah, I barely knew what to do. Like, from then it was panic stations. How do I post it? How do I record it? How do I do this? How do I do it? And but honestly, the moment I got that ka-ching, that was the biggest high I have ever had in my entire life. And like my life changed from that moment going forward. It was crazy how something so small can have such a massive impact on you.
It's amazing as well that you kind of knew you'd found what you wanted to do almost instantly, it sounds to me. I think that's
Yeah.
quite unusual.
Well, I think I would say that to anybody who's like maybe struggling with life, or maybe they've got an addiction that they don't want to continue, because that's what I was. I was addicted to cocaine. I was taking it in work. I was taking it at any single point. I didn't need alcohol to be taking it. I just wanted to take it. And I think if anybody is struggling with that, my best advice to somebody is you need to replace that with something that gives you just the same buzz. And until you find that, you're going to struggle to address your issues, because that's what I had to do. And I still get that same buzz now today.
Yeah, I can identify with that. I've had some dark past. I've been to some dark places. I've sort of shared on the internet, but I don't tend to talk about it. But believe me, I can identify with a lot of what you're saying. You might be surprised to hear, but yes. And I think you're right. I'm not sure that I have an addictive personality, but I can be quite manic up and down, and I need to fill my head and keep myself active. And reselling definitely gives me that buzz, and perhaps replaces some of the not so positive habits I used to have. I can certainly say that. I would imagine that we have very similar personalities.
It's funny you say that, because my missus, like when we watch like your videos now, she will sit there sometimes and she will giggle and she'll just go, "He's just you, Aaron. He is just you." And I'll sit there laughing and going, "That's what I would do."
I mean, maybe that's one thing that you identified with. You could see yourself in me and think, maybe I can do that, and I'm a bit like this strange guy on the telly.
Yeah. And I think as well, like one thing that like makes me realize that things that have actually, like, I know that my life will never go back the way it was before. I just know that. But sometimes, like, you come across challenges where in the past something would happen, and that would be my reason to then go and just abuse drugs, and
an excuse to have a blowout.
And I suppose I was guilty sometimes of looking for that excuse as well, like, oh, this has happened, so that's going on. But then, like last March, there was quite a major event that happened in my life, and I didn't even really know if I wanted to talk about this on the podcast, because when I think about it sometimes, even now, I just don't know where my head goes with it. But I am going to talk about it because I feel as though it's a show of the strength that's now within me. And I've got 2 little girls that I have to support. But last March, I was told that my dad had died, and my dad has never really bothered with me, like, ever really. But he had another son that he was a great dad to. I watched him from afar. I used to look and see, he's obviously a great dad. And I used to always wonder, like, why is he not like that with me? And this is all the way up until, like I say, all my life. I'm 36 now. And even last year before he died, like, sometimes I'd sit there and think, I've got 2 beautiful little girls and he just doesn't want to bother. Anyway, he died unexpectedly last March. And it was a couple of months later that I found out that he wasn't my dad. And yeah, and sometimes that's quite difficult to process, because I've lived all my life believing that this guy was my dad and he didn't want to know. And like now, I feel like
he knew then that he wasn't your father, or not?
I believe he did know.
Right.
And
wow,
it's just something like that would normally be my reason to just, like, get back to my old ways. But now I'm setting my business, and my children come first. And I think like that's, like I said, I didn't really know how to say this to you because I've never really spoken to you before, but I feel like that's a great example of how mentally strong I've become and how like resilient, and I know that I'm focused on my business. And don't get me wrong, it was easier thinking that I feel like I was in an easier position thinking that my dad just didn't care than being in this position of, well, now I don't actually know who my father is, you know what I mean? And it's crazy. And sometimes
Yeah.
I sit there and I just think, what is going on? And my partner's great, she supports me. But again, I've brought that up just to show, like, 100% a few years ago, that was my self-destruct. Like, and now I
Well,
have this business.
I would imagine now you've got something to lose, as in you've got a young family that means the world to you, clearly.
Yeah.
You've got a business that you're growing. You've got stuff you don't want to lose. Whereas maybe
That's exactly that.
before you didn't care, right? Nothing to
Oh, yeah.
lose.
Nothing
Who
would care.
cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was my attitude. That was my attitude. And you're right. I have got a business to grow, and I just want to get onto something where you've said that. That's what my business is doing, growing. Like I say, our eldest has just started this September in nursery, and the youngest is still with us full time. So, in regards to where I am as a reseller, I don't want this podcast to be like something where I try and tell other resellers what to do, because believe me, there are thousands upon thousands of resellers that will be earning a lot more money than me, that will do it a lot better than me. But for the situation that I'm in currently, I'm doing my reselling job and being at home with my family. I could spend a lot less time at home, maybe sourcing some more stock and earning some more, but that's not the reason why I do reselling. When the kids go to school, both of them, that's when I've got it in my head that I kind of press the launch button and look to really like start to scale. So I've got till September next year.
Well, your kids are only small once, and you're in a privileged position that you can be there. And I know we chatted about this last time because this is version 2 of the podcast. But I think I said to you last time that I quit my job and Andrea quit her job to do reselling full time, and we just had a baby. We were in a rented house, and it was a crazy decision, really, timing wise. But what it gave us was we were both there to see our daughter grow up, and we shared all of those things and all those moments. We were both there to see her first steps, first day at nursery, all of that stuff. We both got to witness all of that. And of course, you only get the one chance.
Yeah. You can't
you're
go
going to
back
be
and
your daughters and make the most of that, which is, you can't buy that.
And that's what I always say, like when it comes to like being rich and things like that in terms of money, I'm happy not to be mega rich in money. I'm not rich. I'm not in the slightest bit rich, never mind mega rich. We get by, and that's the truth of it. I'm not one of these resellers that's going to pretend I'm making millions and millions of pounds or even thousands and thousands of pounds. We make enough to live a lifestyle that we like, and we can get by. But I put a photograph on Instagram the other week. I picked my daughter up from school, and I said to my partner, I said, "You stay here. I'm going to take the kids to the park." And I had them both in the swinging, and I took a photograph of them, and I actually put that on Instagram. I put, "This is why I'm a full-time reseller, because there's mums and dads now that are stuck in offices that can't do this, and this is where I am rich in my job."
100%. And I've said this many times, and I try to say it often, that for us, myself and my wife, we both do this. It's a lifestyle choice, and it gives us a certain lifestyle.
Yeah,
You know,
I say that.
We don't have to work for anybody else. We choose the hours we work, and we've got ourselves in a financial position where we only have to earn X amount to be comfortable. We're not trying to be rich. We're not trying to work every hour God sends and do all those things. I've kind of been there, done that to get to where I am now. But yeah, definitely it's a lifestyle choice. I think reselling itself is. There are ways of scaling it up, and we've all seen those channels: bigger, better, faster, more. That's never been me, really. And that's not what I offer on our channel. My channel is just documenting me messing about in my shed, really. I mean, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I think it is true that by starting that channel, you would have like inspired a lot of people to do that. But you are right in terms of I always say eBay, but I sell on a couple of platforms now. But I still say eBay. eBay is a way of life. It has to be a way of life. That's how you have to treat it, and you have to take the good with the bad. But in terms of like all the plus sides with it, if you need to go to see the doctor, you can just go and see the doctor. If you need to go to the toilet, you could go to the toilet. If you want to have lunch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you can go out for lunch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's just the flexibility is something that money cannot buy, and that's I would
yeah,
struggle with, and I think looking back, I've always struggled with this when I've had jobs. The kind of like, you will be here at this time, you will remain here until this time, you will have a
yeah.
break at this time, you will eat at this time, you will have this many days off a year, you can have this many days off ill. Like honestly, like it just not for me at all.
Well,
And I know that now.
I struggle with authority, always have done, right back to school, which makes it seem more bizarre looking way back that I joined the police force, right? It's
Yeah,
just a
crazy.
ridiculous decision,
It
but that was
makes
a
no
knee-jerk
sense.
reaction. That was a knee-jerk reaction to knowing my daughter was coming, and I thought, I need to sort myself out and get a career. For me, terrible choice. And it took me a while to work out, no. I need to work for myself and take that control back, because I do not do well with being told what to do in any way, shape, or form.
Yes,
um,
I'm the same.
Going back to what you just said, the freedom of what we do is also, it's a very double-edged sword, because we have the freedom to do nothing all day if we want to.
Yeah.
And I've never quite mastered that one. Um,
Yeah.
I would struggle to go back into any sort of employment. I mean, never say never, but I can't see it happening, because
Yeah, I think
20 plus years, I've not had anybody telling me how to do my job or what to do or
yeah.
when to do it. Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? And I think as well, like one thing that I've noticed as well, and I've had this conversation with a few different people, the money that I now receive means so much more to me than my paycheck that I used to get every Friday. Like the money I receive, I tend to look after it a lot. I literally know where every penny goes, needs to go, when every penny's coming in. And some
Yeah.
people would think, how that sounds like such a stressful situation, like needing to know. But I just know, because it means so much more to me.
Yeah, you've worked for every penny. Or I mean, obviously, when you're in a job, you've worked for that money, but it's different, isn't it? You know, you're going to get a paycheck. And I think you relate to it very differently to when you've had to buy, sell, package, send out every single item to earn every pound that's coming in. It does mean more to you, I think. There's something about
Yeah,
that for sure.
I think with that as well, it's like what happens is if you work in an office job and you go in and you don't have the greatest week of your life, you're not going to get deducted any wages for that.
Yeah.
Whereas with us, if we just don't have the greatest week, if we put off doing listing or whatever for a couple of days, we know that that is going to financially affect us further down the line, and you really do get out of it what you put into it.
Exactly. In a 9 to 5, you can turn up and put half the effort in and still get your full wage with what we
Yeah,
do.
exactly. You
If you
can't
only
do that,
list
can you?
half the amount of things, you're only going to sell half the amount of things. Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? But at the same time, like, I feel now this is going to sound completely contradictory to what I've just been saying about free time and things like that. It's so strange because I can't put my finger on it, but I feel like I have so much free time, yet so little free time at the same time. I cannot quite like ever describe that to somebody. Like I've got so much, but I suppose it's because I can just if I- if for example I'm not feeling great during the day, I can just say I'll list tonight. I'll 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 get my photo set up at 9 o'clock after we've eaten, and I'll list some items tonight. And you
Mhm.
can't do that with like if you've got to go into an office, you can't say, "Oh, well, I know I've got these hours to do, but I'll just start a bit later today and finish a bit later." Like you contracted to them hours.
Well, I don't know if you're the same, but my days go in a flash, and all of a sudden it's
Yeah,
the evening, and I'm thinking, where did that day go? Because it's not like work to me. Sometimes it's a mad rush to get the orders out or whatever, but I'm still enjoying it. I'm still getting that, that enjoyment out of it in some way. But I do have memories of office jobs way back when, literally clock watching, trying to wait until that gets to 5 o'clock. I haven't
been in there 15 minutes. It feels like 3 hours.
I haven't clock watched for like over 20 years now. I'm wondering where the hours go in the day, because I don't, I'm terrible at time management as well, which doesn't help. But because I enjoy what I do, the day goes just like that. So before I know it, it's Monday again, and I'm doing another picking orders video, and it's Monday, and I'm like, where did the whole week go?
I get exactly what you mean with that. Like today, I had a couple of things I wanted to list today, and I woke up this morning. I did some packaging from yesterday, posted it. I had to make a couple of phone calls, and then I thought, oh, it's Tuesday. This is another great like benefit of being self-employed. I thought, oh, it's Tuesday morning. It's raining outside. The barber shop's going to be quiet. I'll go and get my hair cut now. So I went and got my hair cut on a Tuesday morning, and then I came home, did a little bit of admin, and then I looked at my watch, and it was like 25 to 2, and I was like, where's that day gone? I better get some items listed. So I managed to do that before we picked her up from school, and then from 3 o'clock this afternoon, I've done absolutely nothing. We had some tea, and we've got the kids in bed, and I've done absolutely nothing.
And some days, we'll go and visit friends, or we'll do something else, and I'll make up for it on another day. And you can do that when it's flexible. And I've got into a system now where I'll sit there watching telly in the evening, drafting. I might do 10 or 20 drafts just sat there. And then I'll do all the pictures next day when I've got some nice daylight or whatever. And you can just decide which bits of time you're going to allot to your business when it suits you. And I'm a night owl anyway, so sometimes I'll be working until 1, 2 in the morning quite easily. And then maybe I'll have the next morning off, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. It doesn't
Work
matter.
still gets done. I do it all on my schedule, whatever that weird schedule might be.
Exactly. And what is another good thing as well is you can do things and incorporate work to it as well. So I'll give you an example with that. You might want to go out for breakfast or go out for a coffee, and you know that there's maybe 5 or 6 charity shops or whatever within the vicinity of where you're going out for breakfast or for coffee, and you can literally go out, have your breakfast, and then go in the charity shop next door and get all the money back that you've just paid for that breakfast and more. And like, that's what I absolutely love about it.
Yeah. Well, we incorporate it. We went to a charity warehouse sale last Saturday. Was it Saturday? All the days merge into one. I think it was Saturday. And we just make a day out of it. So we went to that. Then we'll go into Bury and have some food somewhere, wander around Bury, and and it's a fun day out, but we're actually working, buying stuff.
Crazy.
We just enjoy it anyway. So it's not really work.
It's not, is it?
Make a video while we're there. It's great. It is.
I mean, I do say all the time. I say to my partner all the time, like, I don't feel like I've done a day's work in a long time. Like, even though I have a job, and like, it's not. I always see this, but it's not a proper job as what your traditional jobs. Like, I don't feel like I've done work for a long time, and what that does, like, mentally for you. I remember the stress that I used to have I was getting so stressed making other people rich, and like working for other businesses. I used to get so stressed and like down about it. Whereas now, don't get me wrong, I have my moments. Of course I do. I'm packing it all in. I've had enough of eBay. I'm sick of it. Like, probably once a month, that gets said at least. And when I calm down, I think, what am I talking about? Like, I could never go back to that stress.
And it is worth saying, actually, just quickly, we're painting a lovely picture about our working week and what we do, and isn't it glorious? But it is hard work still, and it does sound like it was just said how wonderful it all is, but it's an odd one, because on the face of it, it's super simple what we do. But if you do it day in, day out, and you rely on that for your income, it is not an easy option. And if anyone tells you it is, I think they're lying. It's really
Yeah, I
not.
think
And I
so.
think you have to have a certain mental aptitude for this and enjoy it to make it work. But yeah, I try and remember to say in my videos as and when that it's not an easy option. And although I love it, I do still work hard.
Yeah,
Although I create
and
my own really weird working hours, I do still put the hours in, and it is worth
well,
saying,
I think you have to. And if anybody was to try and like resell and not put the hours in, they would find out pretty quickly that you have to. And that's like something that like I touched on before. Like, I don't want this to make out like, oh, reselling's easy, or I'm like a reselling guru and I'll tell you how to improve this, because I am not the right person for that. There's a million things I know I could and should be doing better at this moment in time. But
same.
I know that, and I'm going to address that in my own time at my own speed, and that's one of the beauties about it. So going forward, I mean, I have a storage unit now with stuff in it, but I said in the previous non-recording that we had, one of the biggest mistakes I made last year was just buying stuff and selling stuff, and I think I was saying this to someone the other day. This year, I need to act like a little squirrel who may go into hibernation in the winter when it's peak season. I need to put stuff to one side, and knowing that when the car boots end, or when all the tabletops are starting to end, or the jumble trails, that I've got stuff stored away, because it has been difficult. We had to make a business decision in like October October was great, sorry. November was great, but then coming towards December and January, I had to make a business decision of what I was gonna do to kind of get through, because I'd been silly. I hadn't put stuff away. I had a great summertime. I was making more money than I've ever made in my life, but I was spending it just as fast as it was coming in. And for the winter time, I didn't save anything. Like, I had little bits. I don't have a death pile. I know you've recently just cleared yours. But my aim this year, there'll be people out there whose aim is to clear the death pile, and my aim is to make a death pile. And I need to be cautious that I make a death pile of stuff that I'm actually going to want to list again in the future. I don't want a pile of junk that I don't want to list.
It's a tricky one to get right. And you are right. For the first time since I've been reselling, way back when I was part-time in the 90s, I've got a handful of bits in the living room I'm sorting out. And then my unlisted stock, what I call my stock, I don't have a backlog of for the first time ever. Although it's one business and Andrea has a room full of backlogs. So I'm not,
Yeah.
So I'm not there. But yeah, I think you're right. It's a tricky one, backlog or no backlog. We have always naturally bought more than we can list throughout the summer. We'll go and fill up the car. If the stock's there, grab it. If it's going to make us money, grab it, deal with it later. And that's naturally got us through the winter. But we've tended to buy way more than we needed for the winter, and it's just built up and built up. So I think somewhere in there is the balance of buying enough to see you through the lean times right now, like January's tricky to source, right?
Yeah.
Not buy so much that it becomes overwhelming, because I've been there and I've got friends who are completely overwhelmed with their backlog. It's a crazy one, but you can end up just hoarding stuff and it becomes a problem. And I've been there as well. I used to have a loft full and 2 offices full.
Yeah. And then you're like, where do I start with all this?
Weekend and have nowhere to put it and be falling over the stock because it's all on the floor in my office. So somewhere in there is a sweet spot, but I'm not sure.
Well, I know that I definitely wasn't in that sweet spot this time around. I know that much for a fact. So my plan is, although I didn't do this week, but my plan is 20% target of every haul at a car boot to one side. And that, I don't know whether that's being too ambitious or not. But I'm also going to kind of make sure that, like I say, it's not just the junk that I'm putting to one side, because we all still do that. I still do that every single time, no matter how many car boots I go to. I come back and I always have something that I go, oh, I wish I didn't buy that. What was I thinking? What was I thinking at 6:06 a.m. on a Sunday morning that I really wanted to buy this for my reseller? It happens weekly.
And
I think that's something that we all do.
Those are the things that get put on my shelves and I don't deal with. And that's what I've been plowing through for the last few months is years of that decision making, buying something that I know I don't really want to test. It's probably got issues. Electronics are the thing for me.
But you recently sold that light. That light was absolutely amazing sale. Was it like £275?
Yeah, the revolving beacon. Yeah.
That's amazing. Just sat there.
Yeah, 275. It went on offer in the end, and it went within like a day or two. Crazy.
But when you do that, then I can imagine that kind of inspired you to go and list the rest of like your backlog that you had left, because it's
Well, I've made the mental decision. I'm not going to touch the new stock. We've been outsourcing for the last few weekends, and I haven't touched the new stuff. I've got loads of really good media, some really nice, quick selling, easy to list stuff, and I'm not touching it until all the backlog of unlisted's gone. I'm getting much better at sticking to what I'm saying I'm doing, and actually YouTube has helped me with that, because I was saying all these things in videos.
Yeah, and then people will ask you about it.
I'm accountable to other people, because I'll disregard what I tell myself every day. Like if I put it on a video.
Yeah. I'm exactly the same. I'm going to do this or this today. And at the end of the day, like, oh, well, I only have to apologize to myself for not doing it. I can deal with that.
I have learned that I need to put it out there into the world, and then I feel accountable, because I'm going to make another video next week. And if I haven't done it all, I'm embarrassed, right? So that actually helps. Yeah, I
can imagine so. So what I want to do now, Nick, is I want to talk a little bit about and I know people probably know this already, because obviously you've got a massive following on YouTube, but I want to just ask you a few questions about, I've got some eBay questions, not really like policies and stuff like that, because again, I am not the person ever to ask for. If anybody ever feels like sending me a message asking for advice on Instagram about eBay policies, my advice is don't ask me, because I will probably give you unintentionally the wrong advice. But what I want to ask you, Nick, is just some random little questions surrounding like eBay and yourself and things like that. Firstly, how did you get into reselling?
I was collecting Nintendo, mostly Nintendo Game & Watch back in when I first learnt to drive, which was 1990. The little flipper,
the little rectangular seat. Yeah.
I was collecting those, because that's kind of my childhood era. They were mostly out in the 80s, and I learned to drive, and suddenly I could go to car boot sales and hunt for these things. I could drive myself to a jumble sale, and then we're talking sort of 98. I started doing this late 97, 98. You could find them all over the place, Game & Watches. Now you're lucky if I find one in a whole year's season. So, and then I was actually actively looking to fill the gaps in my collection. And somebody suggested eBay, which was fairly new then. I think eBay started in 95. I'm not sure, I might be wrong. So I went on there to think, I'll buy some on there. And the prices blew my mind, even back then, which were a fraction of what they are now.
Yeah, I was like, crazy.
Like, oh my God, they're selling for 40, 50 quid or whatever. I'm buying them for £1 at the boot sale. Instantly went, hello. Right?
Yeah, money.
That was my introduction. It was, here's an online platform. I can do it from home. I can pick up whatever. I quickly thought, well, maybe there's other things I can buy. And then I got into buying CDs, which were worth much more then.
Yeah.
VHS as it was, videos. DVD wasn't even really a thing. And that's how it started. And then I did it part-time for quite a while. As I said before, I joined the police force. I was still doing this in part-time. Realized very quickly I wasn't suited to that job. Wasn't happy. Andrea was working for Amazon as a book buyer. She was commuting to Slough and back, hated it. Oh, yeah. And we had our daughter. And then we both, around a similar time, decided that was it. We were quitting and we were going to do eBay full-time. That was my in. That's how I got started.
And then from eBay, you then had a retail store as well, didn't you?
We did. We were renting a small 2-up, 2-down house with a baby and a lot of stock. And both of our background, before the police for me, I was working in record stores. That's how I met my wife. And we thought, well, let's set up a high street shop just to get all of this crap out of the house. And maybe we'll use the store to advertise for people to sell to us. That was the kernel of the idea. And it basically, we did that. We got the business out of the house. And then the store became like a CEX store is now, a media exchange. So we were doing CDs, DVDs, and video games. And the video game side of it made us a lot of money. We were the only store in our town, which was Hitchin, that was doing that on any scale. And then that took off. So then we were selling online, we were selling on the high street, we were getting most of our stock through the door. People would just bring boxes full of video games.
The stock?
Day in, day out.
That was amazing.
And I absolutely loved it. I was like a pig in the proverbial. We did that for, I think it was 8 or 9 years all told. And then we came out of the high street and went back to online only.
I bet you saw some games and like games consoles and things now where you look back and you think, I wish I would have just kept that.
For sure. There was a time when I was turning away GameCubes because we couldn't sell them.
Yeah.
People from GameCubes and I'm like, well, I don't want that. And now they've gone through the roof now. It's insane.
Crazy.
I was turning away Mega Drives for a period of time. I had too many in stock, couldn't sell them.
Nobody wanted them, did they? And then all of a sudden, I suppose like vinyl records, that they've become like a big thing again. Everything, it's like a big circle, isn't it?
Absolutely. We weren't even selling vinyl. Now it's bigger than CDs, vinyl. I would turn away collections of vinyl because it was too much hassle and we didn't have the space to sell it. Yeah, you do what you do in the main. About vinyl. Makes sense. You know.
Yeah. I know nothing about vinyl. I could walk past like a really expensive vinyl record at the car boot and I don't even look at them because it's just not my area of like expertise. And you know, but I can imagine with like GameCubes and like SNES systems and Super Nintendos and so the Game Gear, I can imagine you got all that in abundance and like you just
it was great. Back, you think, wow. It was great standing there behind the counter and people just bringing in random boxes of stuff and leaving it with me to value. Right?
It's like literally like it's like a reseller's dream, that, isn't it? Like you literally, everyone brings stuff to you and you say, I'll give you this much for it. Do you want it? Do you want to take that or not? And like that's literally, it's like just a dream scenario.
Like everything, like we said about reselling. Yes, it's great, but it's also not the easy option. And retail is hard work. The overheads were crazy. We had a great big. Well, we started off on a smaller, on the outside of town shop, and then we moved into a more central position, double fronted, great big shop. The rent was a lot. The rates were eye watering, and then you got all the other overheads. We had staff, so. Our
theft as well. You probably have to include a budget for theft.
Sorry, I missed that. Go again.
Sorry, I was just saying, like, I bet like things like theft and like loss prevention, like you'd have a lot of that maybe within the store as well. That shrink, it should. I can imagine is a nightmare as well.
We were broken into several times. One time they properly got in and they stole everything of value. By this point, we had accounts with Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. So we had all of the chart games, and we had, if a new Mario game was out, we might have 20 copies sealed out the back. They got out the back, and they stole all of it.
Is that what made you, in the end, like leave the high street?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was hard. When they trashed the place as well, smashed all of our glass cabinets. And I built everything.
Like, when you've worked hard for it as well, and you've built that up, and that's something obviously you got to be proud of. I can imagine that's pretty heartbreaking, like just to see somebody treat it like that. And I don't imagine that it was easy for you to leave the high street again. Maybe in respect it was like, I've sat this, I've had enough, like in the moment, and you're gone. But I can imagine like when you sit and think about it, it's quite like. Bit heartbreaking, really, isn't it, that you've built that up and then other people can just like destroy it and make you want to leave.
Yeah, it was one of my lowest points ever when we turned up and the shop was smashed to bits. It was nearly, that was awful. And it was, I think, the biggest deciding factor to leave. But along with, we'd set ourselves a task financially, which was to get on the housing ladder and then pay off the mortgage. And we wanted to do that through the retail outlet, and it achieved that for us. So we'd achieved our financial goal, and we were both just exhausted. We worked flat out for 9 years or whatever it was. So we were kind of done, but I miss it. I still miss it now. The buzz of all the stuff.
The interaction with people.
Yeah, 100%. Some of the interaction.
This is you don't get.
Another thing, though, is working with the public. It's great, but oh my God, did we get a lot of abuse, a lot of real aggro, because you're handling cash, you're buying direct from the public. That's a lot of stress.
I'll tell you, Nick, something that's always stuck with me with working with the public, and this still makes me absolutely, my eyes are watering now thinking of this. Like, you just never know what you're going to get with the public. And one of my first jobs when I was 16 years old was in McDonald's. And, you know, I was a big greasy teenager in McDonald's on the till. And this man came in one night and he walked up, he came to the till and he said, pudding, chips, peas and gravy, please, mate. He was absolutely drunk out of his face in McDonald's, asking for steak and kidney pudding, chips, peas and gravy, and it still makes me laugh now because I just think you just never know when you work with the public what is coming through your doors.
No, there were so many characters as well that were just hilarious, you know, and we got to know a lot of people by name, and they knew us by name, and there's just. Yeah, and a lot of people that would come in just to spend time chatting with me, which was great, but I had a job to do, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it is, working with the public has its highs and a lot of lows as well. A lot of people, were quite abusive. It is what it is, isn't it? And when it came to people bringing in their game collection, and fair enough, you know, they had an idea in their head what it was worth, but I would give them the going rate, and if they didn't like it, a lot of them would just kick off. And I'm like, I've made,
because you don't want to pay them what it's, they can't seem to grasp the concept that you have to make a profit off what you're buying. I can imagine.
We would spell it out. You know, this is what we're going to sell it for. This is the percentage we can offer you. That's my offer. And then I'd start arguing. I'm like, look, no, the line used to be, you're ripping me off. I'm saying, no, if you don't like the offer, you need to take your stuff away. I've made you a fair offer. If you don't want it, that's fine. If you sell it to me, that's your decision. I'm not trying to rip you off. I've made you an offer. And most of the people who would argue, oh, that's not enough, this is worth this is worth that, most of those would rant at me for a while and then sell it anyway.
And then sell it to you. Yeah. Crazy.
9 times out of 10. They'd say their piece, call me all the names under the sun, then go, yeah, I'll take your offer.
Yeah, actually, I'll take that. Thank you. Craziness. And then I know we're getting near to the hour now. I want to keep it around the hour. So I've just got a couple more. It's flown by that hour, by the way. A couple more questions. These are a little bit more random, if you like, but still relative to reselling. I've seen a video of yours that I think you might mention if I'm on the same wavelength, but what is the most strange experience you've had on eBay? It can be anything. And when you tell me, I'm going to tell you about a video that you released that I absolutely love, and I still can't believe to this day that happened. But your own
strange experience. I had a strange conversation with a buyer who could not wrap his head around the fact of how a Monopoly board folds up into a box.
This is a great one.
Is that the one you're thinking of?
It's not that one, Nick. I've got another one, but please do tell that one. If anybody has not seen this video, it's on Nick's channel. I'm going to link his channel below, and it's an amazing video.
It's a funny one, but in case you don't know, the modern Monopoly, the board is square, and it folds in half, and then you have to fold the sides around, kind of. So in order to do that, it has to have a split down the middle. Otherwise, you can't fold it up. It's impossible to do. Anyway, I sold this Monopoly, I don't know, $12.99 or something. It wasn't worth much. And the bloke gets it, and he starts sending me these rant emails about, you've sent me a ripped Monopoly board. You knew it was ripped, but you hid it in the pictures. And I'm like, was thinking, I couldn't work it out for one. Then I figured out he thinks the board should be one piece. I ended up, I think I sent him a YouTube video showing somebody setting it up and how the board folds up. I can't even remember how that concluded, but it was hilarious.
Oh, really? Honestly, I'd forgotten about that video with the video I'm going to tell you about. It just blew my mind. But that, you are right, that was hilarious. Like the board is like one full half, and then the second half has a split down it so the board can fold over and fit in the box. And he just wasn't grasping that's how it was. And we was rolling about laughing at that because you just think sometimes, surely you have more than one brain cell that you can figure it out that the box will not take the board.
Because I explained it to him and he wasn't having it.
Twice the size of the box, my friend. It needs to fold.
Yeah. He just wasn't having it. And I was thinking, what can I say to this guy to actually convince him I'm not lying and I didn't rip it up? Yeah, it was a weird one. So what thing are you thinking about?
The video I'm thinking about, and I can't remember the backstory to it, but as soon as I say it, I'm sure you will. Something had happened on eBay, and they made you go to a police station to report one thing or another. Absolute, like, I don't know if you want to tell that, because I can't really remember, but I remember you ended up going to like 2 different police stations or...
Yeah, that was the headlight thing, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was the headlight.
We sold the car headlight. The guy took it to a garage, had it fitted, drove around with it on his car for a few weeks, and then decided it was faulty because it was letting in water, sent it back. It was cracked on the back.
Yeah.
This was sent brand new in the packaging, still, you know. Anyway, yeah, we got into a row with eBay because I wasn't accepting the return. I didn't want to accept the return.
Of course, yeah. Rightly so.
And I can't remember the ins and outs of it, but they said to us we had to report it to the police. So we had to jump through all their hoops to try and get this case resolved. And I
remember you needed them to stamp something or something like that, didn't you? The police to say that you'd been in there or...
Yeah. So I thought, I'm going to document this because this is absolutely ridiculous. But I'm going to go through it as they're telling me. I'm going to do exactly what they're telling me because I want to resolve this. It was like £300 worth of light that this guy had broken and sent back. Anyway, so yeah, you'll have to watch the video if you're watching this because I can't remember the detail. But yeah, we went to a police station. He looked at me like, "What? It's none of our business. This is a civil matter." I said to him, "I know it's a civil matter, but I've been..." Anyway, yeah, that was tough. And then I recorded some of the phone conversations. We were on the phone to eBay for hours with that. And I recorded some of that and released it as part of the video. The ridiculous things they were quoting me about their own policy and about distance selling regulations and all of this. It was hilarious. But yeah, that was quite an ordeal. The good thing about that was somebody quite high up at eBay saw the video and they wrote an apology and overturned eBay's decision because eBay's decision was we don't get any of the money, end of. They overturned it and wrote a written apology. But the even better thing was the video went viral and I don't know, made us $1,000 or more in revenue. So
madness. That's funnily, that leads me on just quickly to my last question. What has been, just off the top of your head, something that you've bought and the value of it afterwards has just like blown your mind completely? Or what is there any kind of deals that you've done that you've just bought off the cuff and then you've realized like, wow, this is like a jackpot moment, like I did not expect this return?
Well, people that follow the channel will know probably what I'm going to say. It's our single biggest sale ever, which was one Atari cartridge, which I bought as part of a job lot. It owed me about £1. I bought a big collection of gaming stuff, loads of consoles, loads and loads of games. And there was this really odd looking cartridge with a handwritten label. I'll cut the long story short. I ended up selling it on auction for 5,200 or somewhere in that realm. Wow. And it owed me roughly £1. I had no idea what it was, but it turned out to be a prototype of an unreleased title by Activision. Never got released.
Wow.
Apparently there's only 2 in the world: one PAL copy, one NTSC American copy, which had been found. I found the PAL version, sold it, and I bought my wife a Mini.
It's amazing how that can happen from YouTube. So just before we end, I'm going to tell you about something that I bought that is right up like your street, I believe, and maybe not so much anymore, but definitely a few years ago. When I first started, we was out buying, and I saw this Sony box. And then whenever I see Sony, like you know yourself, it tends to hold its value. And I looked inside this box, and all the polystyrene was still there, and there was a Sony Sports like ghetto blaster, new,
What, yellow
bright
one?
yellow, brand new. So he was like a house clearance guy in original packaging. I said, how much do you want? And he said £20, and I just wasn't negotiating. I gave him £20 for it. It was brand new. We gets home, I takes it out of the box, and inside the box was these pamphlets, and it was from the Guardian, and it had the date of like 1992 or something like that, and it had been won in a Guardian competition.
Wow.
And it had just never ever been used or out of it. It still had all the polystyrene and like, everything like that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like extremely valuable in terms of like cash value, but to the right. I mean, I made some good money off it. It's not like the most valuable find, but I just thought that that's something that you would like. If you've seen that, you would really appreciate something like that.
It is nice when there's a bit of a story with an item as well. You know,
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, the fact that it was a competition winner and then they just put it in a cupboard and never opened it is incredible.
I just couldn't believe it.
What did it sell for then in the end, if you don't mind sharing?
I think we got, this is right back early, but I think we got close to £300 for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I had about 200
for it. Yeah, I had to wait it out. I put it up, and I had to wait because people were sending ridiculous offers when I paid £20 for it. Do you know what I mean? But in terms of what I thought the value was, I was getting ridiculous offers, and I had to wait. And I can remember we got a negative feedback on it because this is a whole other episode. But we got a negative feedback because it got delayed in the depot by a day or so. So it arrived a day later than the estimated delivery date. eBay removed it all for us, but I just thought, how can you leave me a negative feedback when you know it's left me like the day after you've bought it, and it's not my problem that it's got stuck there.
Did it go GSP then? Was it at GSP?
I don't think it went GSP.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the GSP depot when you said depot there.
Oh no, it got stuck with when I used to use Hermes at the time. Yeah, it got delayed along the way somewhere, and I got left a negative feedback because it got delayed along the way, which you know you can't please everyone. But Nick, I just want to thank you again for coming on this first recording of the podcast. I have got some more guests coming up lined up, so hopefully this can get released every 2 weeks. I think Nick's gonna put something out just before the podcast release, so if you've come over from something that Nick has put out, I really, really appreciate that. Nick, I'm going to link all your YouTube and socials in the description upon YouTube as well when I release this.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll happily promote it when you're ready to release it. We'll put some stuff out there. And thanks for inviting me on. It's been a fun chat. I could talk about reselling for hours on end. So if you ever need another guest, I'll come back and have another chat with you.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll bring you back again. But like I say, Nick, you honestly, one thing like I want you to take from this as well, if you do take anything, is just that you have actually like massively impacted my life, completely changed it. I know that I would not be, I say where I am today, but my life wouldn't be how it is today. And I'm sure that there's hundreds, if not thousands of people that you've kind of like just touched and changed their life a little bit and you're unaware of it. So that's something that you should be immensely proud of.
Well, before we go, then I'll just touch on that because it's incredibly humbling, and I've loved hearing your story and the fact that I've helped you in some way or just inspired you to turn your life around. That is truly humbling. And you're right, we do get emails from people. We even get letters through the door from people like yourself saying, I stumbled across you and you just helped sort my life out. Or you helped give us a second income and we're now able to pay off a loan, go on a holiday, or that sort of stuff. I love all of that. All from a decision to just say yes to doing something completely out of my comfort zone, which was YouTube. And my early videos are painful. If you want to laugh, go and watch my early videos. But yes, thank you for sharing that. It does mean a lot. It makes it all worthwhile. So thank you.
I think the best way I can sum it up is not all heroes wear capes. Some of them pull tat trolleys around the car boot sale.
Not Another Flippin podcast is presented by Aaron West. You can follow Aaron on Instagram at AaronSells87 and subscribe on YouTube at Not Another Flippin podcast. This podcast is produced and edited by Matt Dean at QPod, Oldham's only dedicated podcast production company. Visit kupod.co.uk and follow them at QPod UK on socials for more info.